Everyone in Cedarwood Commons knew the Holloway family, and I mean everyone. Greg and Diane Holloway were the kind of neighbors who made you feel slightly inadequate just by existing near them. Greg coached Little League on weekends, Diane volunteered at the food pantry every Thursday. They had 2 kids, a son named Caleb who mowed lawns for pocket money, and a daughter who won the regional spelling bee 2 years running. They were, by all visible evidence, the gold standard of suburban family life. And for 2 years, I believed it completely. That's the thing about a really good performance. It doesn't feel like one. I moved into Cedarwood Commons at 35, freshly divorced and deeply uninterested in other people's business. My house was a rental. My plan was simple: keep my head down, work from home, survive. The Holloways lived directly across the street. Their lawn was always green, their minivan was always clean. At Christmas, they hung lights so perfectly symmetrical that I genuinely suspected a laser level was involved. According to researchers at UC Berkeley, the way we present our homes and yards to neighbors is one of the strongest signals we use to establish social identity. The Holloways had perfected their signal: wholesome, stable, trustworthy. I bought it without question. It started with a package. Not a dramatic beginning, I know, but most real stories don't start dramatically. They start with something small that nags at you. A FedEx package arrived at my door by mistake one afternoon, addressed to a Daniel Ashworth at my address. I figured it was a typo. These things happen. I crossed the street to ask Diane if she knew who Daniel Ashworth was, since the return address was a law firm downtown. She froze. It was barely a second, half a blink, but I've worked in communications long enough to know a micro-expression when I see one. "No idea," she said with a perfect smile. "Probably a clerical error." She waved me off warmly and went back inside. I walked home and told myself she was right. I was almost convinced. Here's what I should have left alone: the name Daniel Ashworth. Here's what I did instead. I Googled it. In fairness, I was bored, and it was a Tuesday. What I found was nothing dramatic at first. A LinkedIn profile for a financial consultant based 30 miles away in the city. Mid-40s, neatly pressed headshot. But something about the jaw, the set of the eyes, I couldn't shake it. I pulled up Greg Holloway's Facebook page. He hadn't posted in 8 months. I looked at the profile photo again, then the LinkedIn photo again. Same man, different name, different city, different life. My coffee went cold while I sat there trying to convince myself it was a coincidence. Psychologists call this phenomenon identity compartmentalization, the human ability to maintain separate, fully formed selves in different contexts. Most people do it on a small scale. Greg Holloway, it appeared, had taken it to a professional level. I want to be honest about what happened next, because I don't think I behaved perfectly. I started paying attention in a way I hadn't before. Not obsessively, but the way you can't stop looking at a crack in the ceiling once you've noticed it. Greg left every Monday morning and returned Thursday evenings. I'd assumed he traveled for work. That's not unusual. But now I clocked it differently. He always returned with dry-cleaned clothes in a garment bag. He always came in through the side door, not the front. Once, on a Wednesday when I knew he was supposed to be gone, I saw his car in the driveway. When I checked LinkedIn that evening, Daniel Ashworth had posted a thought leadership article about work-life integration. The irony was almost poetic. According to a 2022 study published in the Journal of Social Psychology, approximately 1 in 14 adults in Western countries maintains some form of significant secret identity, financial, professional, or relational, from their immediate family. The reasons vary: fear, shame, ambition, addiction, a past they couldn't outrun. I thought about that statistic and about Diane, who still waved from the driveway every morning like everything was fine. Maybe it was fine for her. Maybe she knew. Maybe she didn't want to know. That's the uncomfortable truth about secrets. They don't just belong to the person keeping them. They belong to everyone who decides not to ask. The moment everything collapsed was a Saturday in October. Caleb was raking leaves in the front yard. Diane was on the porch. A car pulled up. a sleek black sedan I'd never seen before, and a woman in a blazer stepped up holding a manila envelope. She walked up to Greg, who had just appeared in the doorway, and handed it to him with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this before. Greg's face went white. Diane stood up slowly from her chair. The woman got back in her car and left without a word. A process server, I would later learn. Greg was being sued, not as Greg Holloway, but as Daniel Ashworth, for financial fraud connected with clients at his city-based consulting firm. The two lives hadn't just overlapped, they had collided. What followed was the quietest explosion I have ever witnessed. No shouting, no dramatic driveway confrontation, just a family slowly disappearing. Greg's car was gone by Sunday night, Diane stopped coming out in the mornings, Caleb quit mowing lawns, the spelling bee daughter stopped riding her bike up and down the street. 3 weeks later, a moving truck arrived. Just Diane and the kids. She caught my eye once while directing the movers. She didn't wave with both hands this time. She gave me one small nod, the kind that acknowledges a shared truth without putting it into words. Here's what I keep coming back to. Greg Holloway wasn't caught because he was careless. He was caught because the architecture of the lie finally ran out of room. Two identities can coexist for years, different cities, different names, different email addresses, until something as mundane as a misdelivered package starts pulling at the thread. The truth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it shows up in a FedEx envelope addressed to the wrong house. People in the neighborhood talked, of course. They said they'd always sensed something was off. They said the lawn was too perfect. They said Greg was too friendly. The revisionist history of community gossip is one of the most reliable phenomena in suburban life. Everyone is an expert in hindsight. I don't pretend I figured it all out. I stumbled into it and couldn't unsee it. But I think about Diane sometimes, about what it means to build a life next to a version of a person rather than the person themselves, and about how the suburbs, with their trimmed hedges and color-coordinated mailboxes and carefully curated normal, are genuinely one of the best places on earth to hide. The new family who moved into the Holloway house has a dog named Biscuit, and they leave their trash cans out past sunset all the time. The HOA has already sent 2 notices. I find this deeply comforting. If you've ever had a neighbor, a coworker, even a family member who turned out to be different from who you thought, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story got you, hit subscribe. I post every day. The next one is even wilder. I'll see you there.